So I manage a team who are predominantly involved in NEET work. So everybody knows not in education, employment or training is the byword. Many, many years ago, the Daily Mail called it the new underclass, which just was, but it is. Yeah, charm. Classic Daily Mail, really. So my team are careers leaders, enterprise coordinators and engagement officers, and we have a data officer. Now, when I first met Nina, I think I had one data officer in my team. So we've really grown in those last few years, kind of clawing back to where we previously were in the days of Connections. If anyone remembers Connections, we had a staff of 100 in the city, and that was just me and my little team. So the agenda today, we're going to talk about the NEET situation. We're going to look at it nationally, look at it locally. Then we're going to look at what the risk of NEET is, so what we call the RONI, the risk of NEET indicator that we track from school. Then we're going to talk about partnership in the city, because that's what we're all about today, how we work together, and then just a few slides on innovative new ways that we're trying to work with young people across the city. So, next slide. Am I in order? Yes, I'm in order. Okay, so this bit of data came from the ERSA, I don't know what that stands for, and the EDT, which is the Education Development Trust, research paper that they released in June of this year. And it was this that we had a guy, Nina came to a conference of ours, and we had a guy come and chat to us about this, and that was what inspired Nina to say, could you come and talk a little bit about it at our event. So, NEET nationally has gone no lower than 10% in 20 years, although we try, that's where we're at. It's at 40% for care experienced young people, which we know is one of our most vulnerable groups. Interestingly, they did a humongous amount of research, and what they found was that the barriers that young people are saying they have are around capability and opportunity, but not motivation. So that kind of was like, oh, all right then. So what they're effectively saying is that there is too big a gap between what they feel they want and getting to that point. I think I've got some more stats. Yes. So 92% of respondents stated mental health as being the biggest barrier. 78% stated lack of qualifications. Many of them said that while they can see that the local offer is good and positive, and certainly in the city over the last decade plus, we've always been really lucky to have a huge offer for our NEET population. It is shrinking rapidly, with providers having to leave our city, and changes in funding mean that it is shrinking. I can think of 3 off the top of my head that haven't run this year, and 2 more that have shortened their courses and won't be running till next Easter, and obviously that is essential for us to have a decent offer. But the gap between, well, the reason they're leaving the city is because we know we have got NEET young people, and we'll see some data on that in a minute, but we can't get them to engage in the offer. So the offer's sitting there twiddling their thumbs, desperately needing these young people, not least because they get funded by the number of young people they get, and we just cannot get them to them. So that's a massive issue at the moment. Another thing that came up was the employer understanding around diversity in the workforce. So what that means is undiagnosed conditions like anxiety, which came up quite a lot, are just not being acknowledged by the employers out there, which is interesting because we all went through that pandemic and we all have got issues, but as Nina was saying, it's different for young people, and employers are a little bit too quick sometimes to refer to them as the snowflake generation, which just feels massively rude and unfair, and it's that lack of understanding that is causing problems with young people going into the workforce. Financial incentives create barriers as training programmes don't cover living costs. Apprenticeship wages are low, especially true for those leaving care who live independently, when obviously working training is low on the priority list. We're back to that Maslow hierarchy of needs bit. Mentors with lived experience are really valued, and in the city we're trying to get a programme underway called Thrive, which is about using mentors with lived experience to help our young people who have left the youth justice and also the care system. And they also found in the research that there was a gap in careers provision for those not attending school pre-16. Now this is obviously national. I feel very lucky in the city that I have a careers leader who is a qualified careers advisor, and we make sure that we offer those young people who are not attending school a careers interview because it is so crucial. So That's national, but I feel like locally we're all right on that. We've got somebody who keeps that covered. Okay, next slide. All right, bit of data. Now I did ask our data manager if he could make this look pretty, put it on like a pie chart, because I didn't know how. And he went, yeah, I'll get to that, and then he didn't. So you just got numbers, not pretty colours, unfortunately. This is not, it's not out there yet, this data, because it's a really difficult month for us. We have to track all of our Year 11 leavers and Year 12 leavers to make sure that they're in education. And I gave out phone lists to our team this week, and they were like 100 on each list. So it's a really, really, really difficult time of year. Reflected in the fact that we have got an unknown of 18%, and this time last year it was 8%. So it's a little worrying. We've just lost our data manager who retired. So we had a new team come in who didn't really understand the service maybe as well. Then we had a computer upgrade which put a firewall up which prevented our data from linking in, and it just was, you know, when you're like, what more can go wrong now? Just more data problems. So we are in a really worrying position. We have spoken to the DfE just to say, not our fault. Please don't look at our data too closely this month. It doesn't look very pretty. We've got until the 11th of January, which is when you report on the previous month, to change that figure. So while for me it's not really about the data, it's about the young people, we have to be really conscious that if we're going to get any funding, and also if we're going to save ourselves in the massive local authority cuts that are happening continuously, then we have to prove that our data is moving in the right direction. So making it clean is my absolute priority. I certainly don't believe in hiding the truth from anybody. So currently this is the warts and all truth of our situation. Combined needs unknown, 21.18%, which is beautiful. Okay, let's whiz on past that one quite quickly. Right, this is the breakdown of the vulnerable groups. As you can see, our SEN, special educational needs, are over 50% of our NEET cohort. So that's those young people with an EHCP, plus those who are registered as SENK, which means they have additional needs but not quite at the level where they would get an EHCP, at over 50%. Really worrying. I think I have been asking for a specialist engagement officer from SEND since way back in the STEP, when we had STEP money to run, which was years and years ago, and no one has ever heard my cries for help, and then we ended up with 50% of NEETs who have an SEN need. A lot of them are coming out of school without an EHCP, and our teams are meeting them and feeling like, how did they get this far without an EHCP? You know, what goes on further down? And I'm starting to learn more about SEN because they sit near us now in the civic, so I'm asking a lot of questions, but I still feel a little bit like, I appreciate the need is growing, I do appreciate that, but there are young people now going out into the adult world who are not ready, and that's a real big worry for us.
What's EHCP stand for again?
Education Healthcare Plan. So you keep it, it's an old statement. Do you remember the statement of needs for special needs? It's what was called a statement. Okay, next one. Right, so early leavers. So we've looked at the national, we've looked at the local data, so I thought it'd be useful to look at where young people who transition from year 11 drop out. We call them early leavers because dropout sounds harsh, but they do effectively drop out of college during year 12 and 13. And also some of them are only on a 1-year course and are not ready for the next level up for the next year. So that obviously contributes to some of these figures that we've looked at. Next slide, please. We've got some more data on the next one. Yes, college early. So I thought, let's pull the contracts out of the database to have a look at the previous few years. And what you can see, of course, is that we had lower dropouts during what I'm calling the online years. Doesn't quite sound like the golden years, but it sounds less awful than the pandemic. So during the online years, less people dropped out, but they did still drop out, despite the fact that most colleges had gone virtual, into a virtual world. It's a clear indication of what is going on, because we then got this massive, great jump again, up to 392. And the one that looks like it drops to 296, I think that's because we didn't receive the Hampshire data to put into that. And we have, it's about 500 students a year will go and study in a Hampshire college. They didn't give us their data this year. So while I would like to say, look, optimistically, look how we've come down for our leavers last year, I don't think that data is particularly real, unfortunately. So Yeah, so there's the issue. So now let's have a little bit more data, because I can tell everybody loves data here. What are we on now? This is the data that I got from the NHS yesterday, so hot off the press. I went trawling around to see if I could locate any kind of facts, and a lovely chap in the NHS gave me this. So they don't hold particularly detailed information, apparently, particularly where obviously they don't take them on as a referral. But what they have told us is that these are the three top three of what we have referrals to CAMS. We've got ADHD, anxiety, depression. I don't think anyone will be particularly surprised. They had 2,272 referrals in the last 12 months, and that doesn't include autism spectrum disorder or psychiatric liaisons, so where you've got incredibly high level psychiatric needs or you've got autism spectrum, that doesn't include that. 47% of these were signposted to another more appropriate service. This is what I'm assuming, because he didn't tell me where these services are, so I'm assuming that, yes, Safe in Your Futures is possibly one of their services, but another one, next slide please, is Cooth. So if you've heard of Cooth, this is an online service for young people. They don't have an app, and my son can't use it, well, won't use it, because it doesn't have an app, it only has a website, so on your phone you've got to log into a website every time, and it's a little bit of a, I keep saying to them, you need an app if you're going to, reach young people, but anyway, make it sound like I know all about that kind of thing. They have had 4,725 logins in the last 12 months, 289 counselling chat sessions, and 3,349 counselling message sessions held. So, top issues presented during any interaction are listed there. We've got self-harm, anxiety, suicidal thoughts, family relationships. None of it a surprise to us, but always just worrying when you see the actual stats. Okay, next slide.
Is this Southampton only you're talking
This
about?
is just the city, yeah, just Southampton, yeah. Worrying. Right, so then you add into that, you've got this mental health crisis going on. We all know about it. It is another pandemic, quite frankly. And it's a strong predictor for us of NEET, of being unemployed, age 16 to 18. And then we have all of these, which are other vulnerability factors that we take data from the school and from all of our reports on. So all the norms, they're not ones that I think would surprise anybody. These are the sorts of things that have a higher risk of NEET. This last Year 11 cohort, 921 were identified by schools, where they basically send me these names and say, we're worried these guys won't get to college, can you do something with them, with that tiny team I mentioned earlier. So I go, thanks, gather all of the data. There was, just for comparison, there were 2,517 in that cohort, so that's 36.5% were identified by schools as not really, if we're honest, being ready to go into a college programme. But we also know that because of raising the participation age, they have to be in learning until they're 18, or have to be in learning until they're 18. We personally don't push that. If they are in a job, doing something positive with their life, we are able to mark that and then not be down on our stats as NEET. And we all know from an education perspective that if you carry on learning, then you're more likely to move up in social mobility and earnings and blah, 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 all that good stuff. But if they are not ready to, and they just want to go and work at McDonald's, that's cool with me, as long as they are happily working at McDonald's and doing that. So it isn't like the law. The education welfare do not crack down if they're not in education during that 16 to 18. So what did we do with those? We sent them all an invite every single week to come to our drop-in. So over the 6 weeks, we have a drop-in every single Monday, and we invited them in, gave lots of flashy pictures of what was on offer and why we were inviting them in. And I guesstimate, because we also had caseloads coming on those times, that we got 10. Out of 921 people emailed every week for 6 weeks, we only got approximately 10 actually come in. And I think I'm being optimistic, to be honest, by saying that. And that is really unusual. It's bizarre. It's almost like you can hear the crickets when you're standing in that drop-in and there's nobody. Tumbleweed goes by and you feel like, why are we all here doing this? We know they're there. We've been told there are 921 of them. Interestingly, we email via parents. Still. Nothing, nada. Anyway, right, move on to the next one. Right, where are these young people? With all of this considered, and all we've just learned, all those lovely numbers, a lot of these young people are, quite frankly, in their bedrooms. This is what we have found. We do have the option, which I've had to really fight for from a risk assessment point of view, but we do go out and door knock, we do go and find them, and the problem is we still don't find them. Before the pandemic, if you knocked on someone's door, they generally answered the door. They don't do that anymore. You see curtains twitch, you see lights on, and nobody answers the door. If you do have a parent who answers the door, they can be wonderful and supportive and really like, what are we going to do with little Freddie? Come on in, let's have a cup of tea and chat about it. Little Freddie never leaves his room. We have not met them for weeks of going and seeing the parent, and we still don't see the young person, and this is just mind-blowing. This is new. In all my years, I've never had this kind of situation from a dealing with parents' point of view. Interestingly, in the old days, we used to have NPCT people go out and knock on the door, because when they're in uniform, people are like, who's that? And they answer the door, and they found loads of our young people for us. So fancy doing that again, that would be wonderful. Okay, so engagement with young people and attending the drop-in is at an all-time low. Parents can be supportive, but they seem to be forming this strange barrier between us and the young people. Overprotective, not really sure what's happening there, and I constantly say, should we have a parent event, should we do something? And I wanted to have an event, as Nina knows, where I got all the providers together for a January kind of start, and unfortunately there wasn't enough on offer. So MPCT, bless you, said yes, we can do that, and Safety Features said yes, we'll come and meet them, but you can't really have a fair for parents with 2 people. And everyone else was like, shh, don't talk to Beth, and they all disappeared. So we haven't been able to do it, which is really disappointing, and therefore, what can we do? Next slide. Right, this is my favourite thing, build resilience. Now, years ago, when my son was 5, they used to make them chant all the things that they were doing in school, and be resilient was one of them. And I remember going, what's that mean? It was like a new word that had come up. So that would be sort of 7 or 8 years ago. And now I feel like, well, it describes everything that we're trying to do. Resilience is exactly this. It's about what you guys are doing all the time. If we have that mental toughness, then when life throws something crappy at us, we are able to cope better with it. So if we can build resilience in our young people from primary school, then we just stand a better chance of them not becoming NEET when they get to 16. So what we want to do is increase understanding of the offer, and coming to things like this is wonderful. And I think what saddens me is that with the cuts that have happened in local authorities over the last 15 years, I know that my colleagues are doing 3 or 4 people's jobs. So having time to come and sit and listen and learn is becoming a real challenge to a lot of my colleagues. So I'm really glad it's being filmed, and I'm sure over a cup of cocoa before Christmas they can sit down and watch it, because I will be reminding them that it's really important that we know what our partners are doing, because then we can share it with our young people. Now the next thing, I love this, raising their life expectation. I read some research on it from a PhD student at the university who was telling me the difference between aspiration and expectation, and it was like a light bulb moment. Their aspirations are often fine, particularly when they're in year 8 and 9. I remember a kid up at one school, which I won't name because it's the same one with the bad offenders. We were doing a big thing on, you know how the airport thing, the flying boat thing went from Southampton. It was like the first flying egg, went round the island, came back, went from Town Quay, and that's why airports are called ports, because they started, and it was a fascinating day, and they were desperately trying to recruit pilots at the time, so they came and did this session at this school, and this lad really took the lead, and when we did a role play, he said, I'm going to be the pilot, and he was really, really vocal. And then I had to go and talk to all of them individually about what they wanted to be, and he visibly shrank and said, well, my dad's a mechanic, I'll probably be a mechanic. And that sums up expectation. You get it from those around you. And our job, particularly in careers, is about raising that expectation, really believing that you can be anything that you want to be. So yeah, it's one of my favourite little stories, that one. That was years ago. He's probably a pilot by now. I like to hope that he went on to do something amazing. Right, next slide. So how we do this is through our partnership, and we have something called the Learning Hub. I've got a list of all the people on it. So we've got over 500 members. We've got education right through from primary school to year 13. We've got training providers, personal development organisations, but we've also got social workers, youth justice teams and pathways and virtual schools. So we've got the social workers that work directly with young people, and they're all in this one virtual team. And what we do is this. We share information, we share good practice, and we share data. And we stole this idea from Bristol. It was not our idea. It was during the pandemic. And once a month, everybody comes together. We usually get around 30 that can be there in a live virtual room where a provider will talk about what they've got on offer, and then professionals in the room can say, without naming any names, I've got little Freddie. We had once, someone wanted to be a dog walker. Someone else in the room was like, oh, I know a group on Facebook that take on dog walkers, and they were able to link the young person up, and that was a beautiful moment, because that's what we're there to do. It's all about the kind of sharing and the partnership. Okay, next. Right, this is my team. We've all been squished. That probably looks better than it did before. So Claudia Friesen is my manager, so she sits in the wider strategic education team. And then my careers leader, I mean, some of these faces might be familiar if some of you work in the city. So Ali over on the other side is my careers leader. She's got a level 6 qualification in careers guidance. Over this side is Lani. She is a shared role. She's our enterprise coordinator. We pay half and the LEP pay half, so through the Careers Enterprise Company. So she does all of our employee liaison, which has been a massive boom because education and employment can sometimes feel quite far apart. And then along the bottom we've got our 3 engagement officers and our data officer over the other side, and I've just recruited someone purely for door knocking. I wasn't allowed to put that on the job advert, I had to call it data, but he's going to be knocking on doors and finding young people, and I'm absolutely thrilled about it. So what we do, we track young people from year 11 through to the end of year 13. We have a statutory duty to report on that and to engage with those young people who are in need, and also to make sure that the offer in the city is the right and appropriate offer for our young people who are in need. I'm holding on to that statutory function because if/when we go bankrupt, statutory functions remain. So I'm holding on to it and hoping that we actually might manage to keep our team because we have a statutory service. We obviously run the Learning Hub Live, and we offer this drop-in, which is on the next slide, I think. There it is. So if you work with young people aged 16 to 18, and it is the years 12 and 13. So if they're 18 right up until the August, that is still the cohort that we work with. We're quite hard to find because we're in the Young People's Hub, which is down in the basement. Not to be confused with the Young Persons Hub, what do they call it themselves? The DWP one is up in the library, and we're down in the basement. So adults in the roof, kids in the basement. That's how it works in the Civic Centre. And you have to get into the little side door down the bottom there. So we would absolutely love it if you bring young people to that drop-in. It is a youth club. It has got a pool table and a foosball table and a cafe, which we wonderfully had Kiwi training who do the Costa Academy, came and trained some of our young people so that they're getting some barista skills to run that cafe. So it's a real lovely hub, real proper hub of activity, and it's obviously all brand new and beautiful. So it'd be lovely if people could bring their young people down to find us. Right, we're nearly done, I promise. Right, innovative ideas. That's a light bulb moment. Okay, next slide. These are just a few of the resilience building resources that we work with. So we have got Global Bridge, which is a digital record of achievement. Now, if you're a similar age to me, you have a burgundy file at home with all your certificates stuck together inside, and that was your national record of achievement. It was a brilliant idea, but it needed to go digital, and Global Bridge have achieved that, and it is a fantastic place for young people to save all of their achievements, not just their certificates. So if they are particularly good at skating, they can take film, they can upload that, they can do pieces of music, anything is possible, which is absolutely wonderful. We funded it for 2 years with some COVID recovery money, and 10 of our 14 secondary schools took up that offer. So we have lots of young people who hopefully are coming out and showing people their records of achievement through Global Bridge. Something else that is displayed in your Global Bridge profile is any digital badge that you get. Hopefully people in the city have heard of digital badging, because it's quite big across adult learning as well, I think. But basically, for example, if you come to the City Council to do work experience, which is something our team organise, then you kind of tick off certain activities that you learn during that week, and then you get awarded a digital badge to show that you've done work experience, and then that gets displayed in your profile, which is a beautiful thing. Body swaps. Now, body swaps is the reason I now hold my notes, because this is a virtual reality practice for job interviews or presentation, and you put on the reality thing, and there's an avatar so that it doesn't look like you, because looking at yourself doing an interview is not much fun. You do the interview or you do the presentation, and then you body swap with the person who's watching, and you get to watch yourself. And what it said was, Beth, put your hands down. So I now try. It doesn't work particularly well, but yeah. My eye contact was great, but my hands were moving all over the place. It's such a fabulous, fabulous resource, and we've got 5 headsets that we will lend to anybody, honestly anybody. Just come and see us, and we will train you up, and then you can borrow the headsets to work with your young people. It's also got the bonus of a little mindfulness app that's just built into the software, where you get to go in the ocean or in the skies or in the forest and beautiful stuff and throw light around in it, and it's very calming. And I know DWP colleagues have said that if they've got people nervous about coming in, they say come in a bit early and we'll sit you with a headset on and you can just have a little chill for a bit. And it's just amazing. I mean, it makes me feel very old that this is the modern world and technology. And then we also are working very, very new with the Young People Index from Your Future Impact, which is kind of like a psychometric tool linked with a personality inventory, and it tells you what kind of work environment you might be best in, what kind of person you are, whether you're a kind of game changer or whether you're the person making things happen at the bottom. It's actually, they did one for me and it was scarily accurate, so we're doing some work with them to try and get that into schools as well, because obviously resilience starts with self-awareness, and this is a fabulous self-awareness tool. In addition to those kind of key ones, we still have, some of you may have heard of Flying Start, which is our transition website, where we have lots of resilience activities from ICANN, which is a brilliant resource. All can be done online. And obviously Access Southampton, which has been around for years now, but has got kind of a broad overview of information. I think that's it. Oh, one more.
I have 2 more slides.
2 more, okay. The other one's just got my name on there, so I think we're all right. Yeah, Your Future, we did this last year in St Mary's Stadium. We got 1,500 people. It was aimed at year 10, but we did actually get loads and loads of people, and we didn't turn anyone away. This year, the Southampton University, because we've done such a successful job of it, have offered us their Spark for free, which is absolutely wonderful. So we are going to be doing it again this year. It's on June the 5th. It's in Southampton Spark, and we're working with Reminds in order to make sure there is a wellbeing space that they're going to manage because they have the skills, so that it is accessible for all sorts of client groups, and obviously everybody be welcome to come along. Final slide. That's me.